Not only through his own Cherokee ancestry discovered his own Jewish roots, but he's also leading the charge in the DNA discoveries of the ancient roots of the Cherokee and other Native American communities.
Deep in the Appalachian Mountains lies a question that has quietly unsettled historians, geneticists, and cultural institutions for decades. The Cherokee people, one of the oldest indigenous nations in North America, carry genetic markers that do not fit comfortably within the historical narrative most Americans were taught. What was once considered settled science is now being re-examined, not through legend or speculation, but through modern DNA analysis. For much of the 20th century, the dominant explanation for the origins of Native Americans rested on what is known as the land bridge theory. According to this model, a relatively small population crossed from Siberia into Alaska during the last ice age between 15 and 20,000 years ago, and gradually spread across the continents. Genetic research appeared to support this view. Scientists focused heavily on mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down exclusively through the maternal line, and identified a limited set of maternal haplogroups labeled A, B, C, and D. A fifth haplogroup, known as X, was later acknowledged but was described as rare and anomalous. Together, these groups were said to firmly connect Native American ancestry to East Asia. This framework remained largely unchallenged until widespread genetic testing of specific Native communities became possible. When researchers began analyzing DNA from individuals with well-documented Cherokee ancestry, the results complicated the picture. Instead of finding only the expected Asian-linked haplogroups, scientists identified significant frequencies of haplogroups J, T, U, and X. These lineages are most commonly associated with populations from the Mediterranean basin, the Middle East, and North Africa. They are found among Jewish communities, Berber groups, and ancient Near Eastern populations. Their appearance in Cherokee DNA raised questions that the traditional model could not easily answer. What made the findings especially notable was consistency. These markers did not appear as isolated anomalies or recent admixtures. They emerged repeatedly across unrelated Cherokee family lines, suggesting that their presence was neither accidental nor confined to a single historical moment. In several cases, the genetic signatures appeared in maternal lines believed to predate European colonization, which immediately challenged assumptions about when and how Old World DNA could have entered Native populations. One widely discussed example involved the ancestry of Elvis Presley. Presley openly acknowledged both Cherokee and Jewish heritage through his mother's lineage. Genetic testing confirmed a Native American maternal haplogroup, while historical records pointed to Jewish ancestry intertwined with Cherokee roots. His case demonstrated how Cherokee bloodlines could preserve indigenous identity while also carrying genetic connections to older civilizations beyond the Americas. It was not an exception, it was illustrative. Other families told similar stories. Descendants of documented Cherokee lineages, some tracing back to the 17th century, consistently displayed haplogroups associated with Jewish and North African populations. These were not random findings. They appeared across multiple family histories, reinforcing the idea that the Cherokee genetic profile was more complex than previously assumed. The implications of these discoveries extend far beyond academic debate. If these genetic markers entered Cherokee populations long before Columbus, then the story of transatlantic contact must be reconsidered. Some researchers cautiously suggest ancient voyages by Mediterranean or Near Eastern peoples, possibly involving Phoenician traders, seafaring Berber groups, or other maritime cultures capable of long-distance travel. Others point to theories involving ancient Levantine migrations, or lost populations whose movements were never recorded in written history. Mainstream archaeology has approached these ideas with caution and, in many cases, resistance. The land bridge theory remains a cornerstone of American prehistory, deeply embedded in textbooks, museums, and institutional frameworks. Challenging it does not simply revise a detail, it forces a rethinking of how the Americas were populated and how isolated they truly were from the rest of the world. There are also political and cultural sensitivities at play. Genetics intersects directly with Native identity, sovereignty, and legal definitions of tribal membership. Acknowledging complex ancestry can raise uncomfortable questions about heritage, recognition, and historical responsibility. For governments and institutions, silence has often seemed safer than engagement. As a result, many of these findings have received limited public attention, despite their significance. For the Cherokee people, however, the DNA evidence is only one layer of a much older story. Long before genetic testing existed, scholars debated where the Cherokee originated. One theory proposed that the Cherokee migrated south from the Great Lakes region, supported by oral histories recorded in the 19th century by ethnographers who spoke directly with Cherokee elders. Another theory argued that the Cherokee had lived in the southeastern mountains for thousands of years, and that their Iroquoian language may have developed there rather than in the north. Archaeological evidence supports a deep Cherokee presence in the southern Appalachians. Sites dating back to the early centuries of the Common Era reveal complex settlements, ceremonial earthwork mounds, and long-established cultural continuity. During the Woodland and Mississippian periods, Cherokee ancestors built towns organized around central plazas and platform mounds that served political and spiritual functions. These were not transient camps. They were enduring communities. Cherokee society itself reflected this depth and complexity. Historical records describe a structured social order that balanced spiritual leadership with warfare responsibilities. Religious knowledge was once guarded by hereditary priestly groups and later became merit-based, allowing leaders to emerge through skill rather than birthright. The creation of the Cherokee syllabary in the early 19th century transformed cultural preservation, allowing history, law, and ceremony to be recorded in written form at a time when external pressure threatened to erase them. European contact brought devastation long before sustained settlement occurred. Spanish expeditions in the 16th century introduced disease that swept through Cherokee communities, killing thousands who had no immunity. Later encounters brought conflict, disruption, and exploitation. By the 19th century, American expansion placed unbearable pressure on Cherokee lands. Despite their adoption of farming, written law, and formal governance, the forced removal of the Cherokee in the 1830s, remembered as the Trail of Tears, remains one of the darkest episodes in American history. Thousands died from disease, hunger, and exhaustion during the March West. Families were torn apart, and the trauma echoed across generations. Yet even after removal, the Cherokee rebuilt. They reestablished communities, governance, and cultural life in unfamiliar territory. The struggle did not end there. Federal policies repeatedly undermined Cherokee sovereignty, dissolving governments, dividing land, and replacing elected leadership with federal appointees. By the early 20th century, Cherokee self-governance was nearly erased. Recovery came slowly, through legal challenges, political reform, and persistent cultural preservation. By the late 20th century, the Cherokee Nation had reasserted its right to self-determination and democratic leadership. Throughout these centuries of upheaval, Cherokee women played a central role. Traditionally landholders, clan leaders, and cultural guardians, they preserved language, stories, and identity, even as outside forces reshaped social structures. Their influence ensured continuity when formal power was stripped away. Today, the Cherokee Nation is a living society, not a historical artifact. Language revitalization programs, cultural education, and self-governance continue to define its future. The genetic discoveries do not diminish Cherokee identity. Instead, they broaden it, suggesting a story that stretches across continents and deep time. What the DNA ultimately reveals is not a single conclusion, but complexity. Human history is rarely linear. It is layered, interconnected, and often incomplete. The Cherokee story reflects that reality, deeply rooted in the Appalachian Mountains, yet carrying genetic echoes of distant worlds. Their history challenges simple explanations. This mystery is not only about genetics, it is about how history is written, which narratives are preserved, and which are ignored. As science advances, long-held assumptions are being tested. The Cherokee DNA findings do not close the story. They reopen it, reminding us that the past still holds chapters we have yet to fully read.